I guess it's not. I don't know. I guess Amazon gave you guys an anime review, a movie review, which is basically called Godzilla, the King of Monsters. This is basically it's a section. Excuse me, the second extension of after the Godzilla movie. Now there is an older film that was called Godzilla, the King of Monsters. I can't remember when it was or something. I think it was back in the 70s or 60s. Really, I really do not know. Now the very first Godzilla movie was not really based in the 2000s, but the very first Godzilla was not published back into, I think it was the 40s. I don't think it was the 30s. I think it was the 40s because it was basically the holy grail of the very first Godzilla that really kind of brought to life to basically as to really the brought back of the basically of the big phenomenon basically of having Godzilla really to basically to be in on the big screen and stuff like that. And some people will probably say, well, dubs should not be dubbed in face for Japanese and stuff like that. And particularly to be honest with you, I definitely do understand. I definitely do understand a lot of Japanese people don't like dubs and stuff like that. But basically, when it comes to anime and just stuff like that, when basically it comes and stuff like that, and just leave the culture as the way it really actually is. Godzilla is basically is a very good phenomenon. It's a very good culture. It's uh, a very good thing for a lot of people that definitely do love Godzilla. Godzilla's been around for I don't know, probably since around the 1940s, or maybe probably earlier than that. That's what I definitely think. And if you look at the merchandise when it comes to shirts or figures or toys or anything like that, and when you look at just basically just of that, you could just see how popular Godzilla really actually is. And Godzilla is a very popular based around the world, but not just only in Japan, but around the world also well too. And it's very extremely popular basically in America also well too, because people definitely do love Godzilla, really definitely do really a lot. I can name pretty much all movies basically out there. I've seen that my dad has really got me into Godzilla, and to be honest with you, I remember like during the time when I was watching Godzilla versus Megalon. Megalon is not really personally one of my favorite villains based in Godzilla, but I happen to do definitely think that he is very cool, and he really actually is. He just goes. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about because he really actually is. I like how he shoots those little bombs out of his mouth and just like wow, the light was going like wow, that's really so cool just to see it really actually is. And one thing I really would love to see if they were to bring back. I can't remember his name. It's a toy robot. I can't remember his name. I think it's a Gaga or I can't remember his name. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It belongs to a kid. It belongs to a kid. It's basically his own personal toy or something like that, or basically it's kind of like it's basically kind of like a Ultraman. Ultraman, based kind of like a basic kind of guy, basic of that. That's something I would love to see if they bring back into a future of a film, basically along with Godzilla. That's something I definitely would love to see also as well too. So, what is this movie, basically Godzilla, the King of Monsters, basically all about? As I said before, Godzilla takes place after the very first of Godzilla, not the very first. I'm talking about the first film saluted basically in America of Godzilla. Because if you guys don't know, Andrew, who's basically is a young boy who passed away. He pretty much that he died basically in the catastrophe basically of the San Francisco of the attack of Godzilla. And there was another monster. I can't remember the name of the monster, but I don't recall seeing this monster back in some of the other earlier movies that I used to watch. That definitely do really to watch. But if when you basically dive into the space of this movie, they have this some kind of devices called the Orica. The Orica is basically some kind of device that can kind of use kind of like telepidation or telepathy to basically to speak to animals basically in the water. Mainly means that speaking to the animals basically into the whales, and listen to them, hear them sing, and hear what they're really actually are saying. And technically, to be honest with you, we really don't even know what they're really actually definitely saying, because using this kind of device, it can be kind of a trigger mechanism that it can turn that can either turn into two different things. It can make them nice, or they can just go bad, or basically they can definitely can go bad. And that's not really basically a good thing, because when you have that such a device, that device can be used as for a purpose, used as for a purpose, basically as for good or basically as for evil. But sometimes if people did have that kind of device, they can pretty much use a manipulation to manipulate based off of animals. They can use the base to manipulate dogs or cats or cows or wolves or bears or whatever it is, and stuff like that. It's kind of a device that can manipulate as life as base of itself. Because if it does that, that's a very dangerous device to really person that can really basically can happen. And that's not really basically a good thing, because I'd rather just person just basically feels to be in basically in my own area, and makes it in basically what I think is that using technology based around animals, it can be a good thing, but I don't think is not a really a good thing. I don't think it really is not. I don't support that really that much. Some people will disagree me with that, because I just don't think it's just really it's not right. That's just my opinion. That's what I definitely do think. I don't hate people based off that. I kind of just basically just let nature take its course, and just let nature just do what nature really does and stuff like that. Because these animals were created for a purpose based on the abundance space of God Himself, because He pretty much made the whole entire planet and stuff like that. And now I know a lot of people probably don't believe in God, but I'm just saying. But that's just way how nature basically takes its course. But when you look at basically this movie, the woman named Emma and also Maddie also as well too. They basically been held as kind of like basically in a way basically kind of like held as hostages, and basically held as hostage. And basically it was basically for the purpose to use this device from Emma to use this telepathically or whatever that is, or some kind of sonar or some kind of radio waves or something to communicate with the animals, to get them to basically the person to calm down. But not only basically just use it just based for animals, but also basically just use it as for the kaijus, which is basically mean as basically they're basically as monsters. Kaiju is a term that Japanese people definitely use basically in the term of Japanese, in the terms of basically of Japanese. That's what they basically they term that. Anyway, I'm so sorry. Anyways, that's the term that they basically use. So if you really would think about it, why would they call it kaiju? Because it's a common name. It's a common name that they definitely use, and that's something that they come up with, and that's what they come up with. Kaiju means monsters. That's what I think. Now the first kaiju monster is Godzilla. Godzilla pretty much is the big behemoth basically when it comes to kaiju monsters, because he's basically the very first kaiju monster basically when it comes to base of films and basically stuff like that. I think it's very interesting to really to see how they make the movie and stuff like that, and really just to see like let's say like yeah something like this can really can basically can happen, that it could. I mean, it probably could basically could happen, but nobody doesn't know if something like that could basically happen. But nobody does not know. Nobody doesn't know if that were something like that, if some kind of scenario that a theoretically of a big giant lizard that pretty much basically be birthed into life, basically as we know it. Nobody really does not know that. Nobody really does not. Nobody does it. Nobody would personally would basically would notice that or anything like that. If you go back into 1999, the movie of Godzilla, Godzilla does a very good representation how Godzilla was basically was born and to explain how Godzilla really actually is. But it's not really the true origin based of Godzilla, but it also tells of a different perspective, the way of Godzilla really actually is. But it tells its own different tell of different story that really actually is. I think the movie is definitely very interesting. It is definitely worth watching to me. I definitely do think it is. If you're a big Godzilla fan, I think you definitely would love this film because I definitely do think that the 1999 film of Godzilla it was pretty much a huge hit. It was based on commercial, especially on a Taco Bell commercial. Where the little dog basically with Godzilla basically going into the driveway and basically into Taco Bell orders and tacos and stuff. I remember that very very well. That was very very popular back then. If you go search it up on YouTube, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And that was very popular because Godzilla back in 1999 was very, very popular back then. It really was. It was such a popular movie. It was such a huge hit. But I don't think that a lot of Japanese culture are based on the people, or I would say the folks based in Japan, probably don't like that because they probably don't think that that's not the image of basically what Godzilla really actually is. But I definitely think that it's very unique of a different standard of basically was based of that. I don't agree on based on the fact making a Godzilla cartoon series is something I definitely don't like. I don't definitely is something that I don't think is just should not basically that should not happen. I think they should just not have done that. I think they should have just left it alone. That's just my opinion. That's what I definitely think. I don't think that's not a very good idea. I just don't think that is not a a phenomenon that should happen. That's my opinion. That's what I definitely do think. A lot of people would disagree with me basically of that. Basically of that. But anyways, basically this movie. So like I said before, Emma and basically Maddie were kind of basically held as hostages or something like that. Kind of basically in a similar basic kind of way to basically they're basically in a kind of similar basic kind of way to basically to use the device to provide all the monsters based on the world. To be honest with you, the monsters basis of their or I would say kaiju or that's what you would basically would say basically you definitely would say that they all have their own different aspects of representation of life. Nature has to take its course. In a way, yes, nature does have to take its course. Kind of like with the wolves. The wolves hunt for deer. They have to because they have to kill deer because that's the only way for them to survive. That's the way for them to survive. That's kind of with the Lions attacking maybe like an alligator or a giraffe or zebra or whatever that they're trying to get, or they're fighting over land because that's just the way the nature really actually is. Could we treat them as pet? No, I don't think that wild animals should not be treated as pet, but we should respect their terror. Excuse me. We should respect their territory, and we should respect what they do that they provide basically in life. Take as for the instance of Lion King, the Circle of Life. The Circle of Life is a very good reputation. It's a very good understanding of that. But do I think that the Circle of Life is basically a reputation based as for Godzilla or basically for other different monsters basically in the world that if we definitely think that they really actually definitely exist, they probably would basically be a lot more different than basically just basically a wolf, a lion, a tiger, a giraffe, or whatever it is that maybe is. But it would kind of what a person would say like Godzilla is obsolete, but Godzilla would basically be another apex predator, would basically be more dominant to basically from other different animals like kind of lions, lizards, or whatever that maybe is. That's the generalization, how they basically would be different. To be honest with you, Godzilla is basically different. Godzilla I guess you probably would say, probably once a lizard. If you go back to the 1999 film, that just definitely shows a documentation how Godzilla was evolved, how he basically that he was, how he absorbed the nuclear radiation, and how that he became so huge and so big and so powerful and really actually that's just how he is because Godzilla relies on nuclear. He relies on nuclear radiation or something like that. That's also that they also show that basically in the movie where excuse me, that's also basically was shown basically into the movie also as well too, because Godzilla was basically kind of like that he was not basically that he was dying, but basically that he was trying to rest and trying to regain back his power because even though Chai basically asked for her, basically one of the girls basically excuse me, not one of the girls, basically one of the ladies who happens to be the daughter basically of the twins. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the two twins that spoke about of Mothra. Mothra was basically a big deal back in the Godzilla universe because it really actually is. Basically really actually is because she even stated that it's going to take years for Godzilla to come back to life and to basically recycle back his energy back in way that he has, and that would that basically be a good thing. That would basically be a good thing for them. But guess what? The world is basically at its end because human extinction is on a brink of destruction because of a monster which basically called Ghidra, or you probably want to say like uh Godan, whatever you want to say, or King Ghidorah, or whatever you want to person that you want to call it, person you want to call it. I probably would call it Ghidra. That's probably I definitely would call it because that's a term I like using a lot more better personally in my own opinion because Ghidra was illustrated back in I think it was back in the 60s or the 70s. I'm not so sure where Godzilla versus Ghidra and also Raidan and also Mothra also Swatoru, I would say the Caliper, whatever his name is, or something like that. I really definitely don't know. But they were both but they're basically but supposed to basically to save the world from destroying Ghidra because that's what they're supposed to do. Because even though if you guys look at basically the aspect of Rhydon and also Godzilla, pretty much did not get along with each other. It's not something like they're basically actually going to kill each other, but they pretty much had a disagreement between each other. Why did they have that disagreement basically with each other? Because they really definitely did. Because they kind of just basically kind of like, oh, I don't like you, and I don't like you, and stuff like that. And to just be honest, that's like with us, hey, I don't like this guy, I don't like that girl, I don't like that person, or something like that. That's kind of basically what it feels to me. That's basically what I definitely think because we have those correlations and stuff like that, and it basically does have those correlations. But when you have the twins, basically the twins, we're talking and doing the translation basically what God right there was saying. They also said like, oh, what's horrible language Godzilla was saying. I thought it was really funny because Godzilla was saying some filth language. He really definitely was. I mean, I could imagine Godzilla was not too very happy. I bet you Godzilla was kind of pissed. It was kind of pissed off at Ryan also as well too. But then like that's when Mothra really has to step in, or the caterpillar monster, and just kind of say like it's kind of like say, you both of you need to stop. You need to stop arguing with each other. We need to work together as a team, and we need to take down Ghidorah down. This is what we have to do. So enough of this bickering. We have to work together as a team. That's basically what they definitely what they needed to do, and that's what they have to accomplish. And basically, in this accomplishment, Mothra was reborn basically into this movie It was beautiful. It was wonderful. It was kind of like a god basically that you basically would see being rebirthed into real life. It's such a beautiful. I don't know how to explain it, but it was definitely was personally definitely was. It was beautiful. It really was. The graphics of the movie was beautiful. The illustration of the movie was the of everything in the movie was basically beautiful. It definitely, really, definitely was. And to be honest with you, I think that America adaptation of Godzilla can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing because it may not follow the lore based off Godzilla, but it may not really basically matter to some people. But I definitely do think the movie is definitely is good. It's definitely very good, genuine. It definitely really actually is. But I definitely want to personally want to argue based with that. I don't like the fact that basically that the mother was basically was used as basically as for a trump card to basically to betray human mankind basically around the world. Because even though the father was not too very happy about what she was doing because what she did because even though her own daughter basically she called her own mother a monster. Ooh, I'm not gonna lie for right there. That's pretty chilling. That's very chilling right there. I mean, you don't expect people really to say that, but the acting is definitely very good, and I definitely do like that. That's something I definitely do like, and that's one thing I definitely do. That's a major plus for me. That for in for a movie basically like this. Now I did see the Godzilla versus Godzilla versus Kong movie, but I'm definitely gonna say that based for later because I'm kind of not too very happy based about that. But it's definitely it's a good movie. But I think the reason why I didn't like that too very much, I'm not saying I hated it or anything like that. Bringing Mechagodzilla kind of too late into the movie was I didn't agree with that. That's something that's my opinion. I definitely do think they should say that basis for another movie. That's something I would really would love to see the person would basically would do. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, I definitely think that the Godzilla the King of Monsters is definitely a very good movie, but it does bring some nostalgia base of that. But they kind of changed the events kind of a little bit. But still, one of my biggest complaints, I still don't like the fact that the mother was basically used as basically, particularly just going rogue and just basically being a villain, basically in this movie, where just basically being a terrible mom because basically what she did. That's just my opinion and that's just basically what I that's how I feel. That's my opinion. That's what I think. So yeah, I definitely do think that the movie was good. It's not perfect. It's not. I definitely do like I said before. I'm repeating myself, but like I said before, I don't like how they used the mom basically as a villain just to betray the whole entire world just because of what she did. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But yeah, it was I give a rating for this movie. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. That's just my opinion. It's the movie is not perfect, but it's very good. I now definitely am gonna be picking it up for maybe for Blu-ray, DVD, and stuff like that. So I definitely am gonna be picking it up. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this movie review. Tell me what you guys think. You guys like this movie? You guys don't like it? What is your guys' opinions basically about this movie? Do you think this was definitely was a very good adaptation based from the older movie, or you don't think that really actually is? What is your guys' thoughts and opinions about the other monsters was basically illustrated based in this movie? And what do you think about Godzilla being the king of monsters? Do you think that he really actually is, or maybe that he really is basically that he's not? But yeah, anyways, I know it's I'll see you guys later. Take care. Hope you guys have one day. Don't forget to subscribe. Please consider subscribing. Please like button, give me a thumbs up or give me a thumbs down, and please here it comes. So, anyways, I love you guys. Take care. Hope you have one day. I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.